I suggest we look at another abstract and analyze it using our tools for emotional analysis and see how other people do that. Now, this is an abstract of a book chapter produced by Professor Andrew Lyon and Professor Roland Sussex. Now, there are no prizes for guessing that Andrew is family. And actually, Professor Roland Sussex was my PhD supervisor. So a long time ago, right? So kind of people I know. So I thought we will look critically into their own abstract and see what we think of this text. Now, look at the length of this abstract. It is longish. Let's have a look in Word, how many words it does have. Typically, you don't want an abstract longer than 300 words. So let's have a look. You can't see my whole screen. Oh, it didn't copy. It didn't copy well. So let's do it again. Copy. Let's have a look whether it will do it now. And it has 286 words. That's pretty good. That's very good. Usually you want an abstract around 300 words. This is under, so that's very good in length, although it looks quite long when you see it typed like this. Now I have put it actually on my PowerPoint so that I can actually color things, and I colored them prior to actually talking to you so that I could see things clearly as I talk to you. So setting the focus, right? What emotion is this? Are the authors trying to make you feel? What do they want you to feel, right? So setting the focus right at the front. What do they want you to feel? So what do they say? And what tools they use for this effect, right? So the adoption of English as the working language of Asia. What are you feeling now? You're in Asia and you go, oh my God, we know, right? Everywhere. Not only it's a working language of Asia, but in many Southeast Asian countries, it is being now taught from primary school grade 1. So the adoption, and we know it's a problem, right? Because we don't have enough teachers. So as soon as we read this, the adoption of English as the working language of Asia, we can already say, yes, relevant, we're part of this policy. And the ASEAN region, right? So now it's not only people to people, but it's also as a language of professional language and of politics. So yeah, we're right in it. It's right. So they use those keywords for us to see. Yeah, we're on that. We're into it. We are sharing this problem. So that's that. Together with an increase in the mobility of people and information. Now, right. So what do they signal here? Not only that we have tourism, that wouldn't be a problem. The tourists can learn Thai or Indonesian, right? They can get the book but the problems are different. What we have Indonesian students coming to Australia and trying to study in Australia, right? Like Mr. Lala Bumela, he's now in Australia. And what else is happening? We have another student here in Darwin who is doing research on, developing research skills in English language teacher education and what is necessary. If you want to actually do your research well, you need to be informed. To be informed, you have to actually look for information. And most of the information is in English because it is used as the language for mobility, right? It's a so-called lingua franca, right? So we're all learning it for sharing information, for shifting between countries, not only for work, but also for studying, all of that. So, and you are in English language teacher education, so you are part of the solution. So this is relevant for you. So they use those keywords to embrace the whole array of problems, right? So that you can now say, oh, these are my problems. I am now interested. So you are interested, right? So they are creating new and significant pressures on language and culture education in English as well as other languages in region. Well, English because it's a lingua franca, which means the language we all use, but other languages as well, right? Shouldn't we all learn a little bit of Indonesian and a little bit of Thai, so that, right? So those languages need to be actually taught as well, and they need to be considered in terms of responsibilities we have. We shouldn't be just using English. We should actually use the language of our region, the languages of our regions, and so on. So there are pressures. There are things here happening, and that's how they set the focus. You know, linguistically, we are now a mixed community. We better do something about it. And clearly, this article is saying this is a starting point. So emotions, we're interested, right? We can relate. We connect to this argument. So we feel connected. We feel that whatever they are talking about at this very moment talks to us. It's relevant to us. So these are the emotions through those keywords. How did these people find these keywords? How did Professor Lyon and Professor Sussex find those keywords? Well, they're old enough to actually know the keywords, right? But they're everywhere in every policy. If you look into ASEAN development policies, these words are there. If you read articles, these words are there. Everybody in English language teacher education field talks about these things. So if you are still beginner and you don't know what words to use, you can go on Google and look for those words in articles and you will find them. And they will nicely set the focus of your chapter and intrigue the learner. Well, so what do you have to offer for us? We're in it, but what do you have to offer? So now we're reading second bit. What's the second bit? Second bit is dialogue, right? So we're looking into dialogue. Oh, sorry for this. This is from the other. Right? The second one is dialogue. Okay, let's look into the dialogue. So how did they solve the dialogue issue? Not dialogue, sorry, problem. It's the disturbance. The second one is disturbance. So what's the disturbance? It is, so we have all these pressures on language and culture education, right? So we have all these pressures. Okay. So the adoption of English as the working language of Asia is bringing all these pressures. It also brings about an enormously expanded use of English between speakers for whom English is not the first language, obviously, right? So what's the problem? It's not just that English is being used, but English is just not our language, right? It's not your language, and many other people also have the same problem. And this expansion includes communication in English between people of different cultural backgrounds. Aha! So it's not just the language, but it's also how we actually interpret one another, right? Because the words in English don't mean the same things to different people, right? So that's why people say communication is negotiation, right? So what they are saying, the problem is not just the spread of English, but what it says, English is not reflective of our localities. It's not our language, not reflective of our localities, and therefore brings with it cultural problems. So that's the disturbance, right? So what does it make you feel? How does it make you feel this? And what tools did they use? How does it make you feel? Oh, sorry. How does it make you feel? Again, you are connected to it because you know that as a teacher, you need to actually teach strategies for meaning negotiation, not just for acquisition of words, but in fact are being interpreted through the filter of your native language, be it Indonesian, Thai, Vietnamese, or Cambodian, right? So that's the problem, and you relate to it because you have it. And if you don't have it today, when you are a teacher, it will be your daily issue. So relatedness, right? So what they did now, they explained the problem of English. They flagged here the problem of English, right? It's a good thing, but now they explain it. The problem is that it is not because we don't use it as a native language, right? It's not our first language. It's kind of a problem. The first language, it's kind of the problem, but the other problem is that we have different cultural backgrounds, right? So you can see how masterly and in a very short way, brief way, appropriate for abstract, these two professors now explicated the focus. So the focus was the spread of English, and through problem statement, they flagged the problem. So they continued with the word English, but now they said, this is the problem and this is the problem. So let's have a look now at the dialogue, right? Dialogue now, and see how they use dialogue to make you, the reader, continue to feel connected, continue to feel that's relevant. In fact, begin to feel that maybe they have an answer for you, right? Let's have a look. So what's the dialogue here? The surge, so increase, right? The surge in the use of English highlights a number of current challenges. Right, so a number. So dialogue is bringing out the voices, right? The voices, the perspectives, the issues, right? So the article, remember the article about samurais and knights? Didn't have it. We didn't know why the student was talking about the ethics and the, the range of weapons, right? The child just put them all in there in his or her text, but we didn't know why. Whereas here we can see how the authors here are explicating now, or continue to explicate, the use of English. First here, then here, and now so first here as a phenomenon, right? As a phenomenon, that's a nice way to put it, phenomenon. Here as a problem, right? So we would just, as a problem, and here as voices, perspectives, right? From which perspectives now we can look at this problem. Let's have a look what they did. The surge in the use of English highlights a number of current challenges. That's a nice way to start it, to introduce voices. English language proficiency levels vary widely across Asia. Well, that's true, right? And you know that, and I know that. And there is data on it. You can actually look at in Google. You can search for that data on Google, and you can actually type that, and they actually show you the ranking of different countries in terms of their English proficiency. So there is data on it. It may be that this particular paper has actually that table in it, but there is data in it. So voices, there's data on widely different levels of proficiency. What else? Communicative competence in English as second language is at least equally problematic, right? So not only proficiency matters, but that cultural thing, which they signaled earlier, is also the problem. The matter is further complicated, third perspective now, by the growth of the internet and other technological progress. And you think, why? Which has resulted in the creation of self-managing and often do-it-yourself society. Oh yeah, I wonder what that means. So this is now, so first two things here you could relate, but this one is intriguing you. What's that third one? Why is it the problem? Right? Why is it so you now feel intrigued, right? They're intriguing you. What's that do-it-yourself? They're telling you, it's established, it's well known, and you might be reading this and thinking, well, I don't know. What's that do it yourself? Is it like make your own coffee? Well, might be. Right? So you are not only just connected now to the problem because you're English language teacher, but also now you are intrigued because you might not know what, just in time, just in case. Look at those words. You might have never heard of them. And they say, oh, it's out there. If you don't know it, you better read our paper, right? So they intrigue you. They bring concepts now here. They chose them on purpose to intrigue you and say to you, it's out there. It is pretty much common. And if you haven't heard about it, you better read our article, right? So that's how they introduced those concepts here. So there are self-managing, often do-it-yourself groups or people or public spheres engaged in finding solutions which are just in time, right? Or how do you say, Anya, this? Or I better ask Google Translate, or I better ask someone on Facebook, right? Or I, right, go to MOOC and I will do some English language learning course through MOOC. If you don't know what's MOOC, you better find out, right? Better check what these things are. And they say just in time rather than just in case. Clearly they oppose them. And you sit here and go, oh my God, too many voices, too many perspectives here. Now you can see how well constructed abstract is able to flesh out the perspectives or voices on which it draws to tell you exactly what it will do, right? Exactly how it tackles the problem of English in New Asia, right? So at each step, you're pretty clear what they will be doing. They will be drawing on those voices, and definitely you will be learning not just about this, but also that thing here, just in time and just in case, and do it yourself, which is clearly new to many people. All right, let's look at the development. So as I said, the development phase begins when the tension of the abstract or of the text has dropped, and now you can see how they did that. Well, what they say to you in the development phase, you know, guys, these are the things we will be actually discussing here. These considerations call for new learning and teaching approaches. Ah, really? Like, you mean no longer the thing that are we doing the new thing? I mean, you know, so you are now as a reader, they say for new learning and teaching approaches, and you think, oh my goodness, you are now a little bit curious, aren't you? Are you the one who is doing those new learning and teaching approaches, or are you the one who is doing the old learning and teaching approaches, and these people are talking about something else? Now, you are not just confused and intrigued, you are wondering about the quality of your capacity to deliver as a teacher, right? That's what the abstract is doing. It's manipulating you emotionally, but doing it pretty nicely, right? Not manipulating you like by hiding information and pretending to know things, but by flagging to you the perspectives which make the problem really important, and therefore the need for solutions. So here's the development. This is what we will be doing. You can read it for yourselves. Now, resolution is a particular framework they will be presenting. Resolution is a framework. So this is development. We will be doing this. The resolution is the framework is explicitly learner-centered. Oh, again, this word, right? It just doesn't leave education. Individual, personalized, and adaptive. Like, what does that mean, right? So you are now really intrigued. Resolution, okay, we will development will produce this framework, and and now resolution is, we'll tell you a little bit here about this framework, so you have more reasons to read this paper, right? It's got all these qualities that might have not been yet really well addressed for many reasons. One reason might be, I know that the article could be, because change is ongoing, right? So as people continue doing research, then more information can be actually integrated, and those concepts are then better utilized and better understood. So this is the resolution, and we're gonna do this frame. Resolution is a framework that we have just introduced to you, and this framework is learner-centered and all of that. And we will also produce an example. And what's the moral? Let's have a look. This kind of approach, building specifically on challenging learners' operational histories. Now you're dying here, right? Like, what? Has significant potential for developing language and culture teaching and learning, and the acquisition of intercultural communication competence in Asian contexts. So what's the moral once again? Well, first of all, what is it doing, right? What is it doing to you? It's introducing words that we don't see every day, right? We don't see those words, like operational histories. It's not like you can say it in everyday textbooks or whatever. So it's intriguing you. It's making you feel like overwhelmed, right? The moral is making you overwhelmed. It may be making you, it's intending, the authors want you to feel that there is something more to learn, right? That's what they want. That's why they throw in keywords that are unusual. So that's the tools that they use. They want you, it doesn't mean how you feel, it doesn't matter so much how you feel, but how they want you to feel. And they want you to feel a little bit curious, a little bit overwhelmed, a little bit unsettled. And that's why they throw in these words, challenging learners' operational histories. Like, this must be a key word of their framework, but what the heck does that mean? And the moral of the story is, you can only go forward in Asia when you actually not only produce those adaptive models, but those adaptive models can only be adaptive because they engage with the students at the level of their operational histories. Operational histories matter, right? So that's the moral so the moral of the abstract is operational histories matter. And they matter, and that's why they put it in here as the keyword, to unsettle the reader, to tell the reader, you better read this paper, because if you don't know it, then you need to learn it, because we are in trouble, right? So let's have a look once again, just to summarize how these people actually created this abstract. They flagged the phenomenon, they explain the problem that this phenomenon brings with it, to up to here, right? That blue. So this should be brown, because it belongs to that. So they flag the phenomenon, they explain the problems that this phenomenon generates, then they produce perspectives, voices, from which this problem will be tackled, right? So proficiency, cognitive competence, and also we have now do-it-yourself models of learning somewhere, or opportunities. They are all out there, and we need to actually consider all of that. So what this paper is saying in the development, well, we will be checking it out, right? We will be trying to address it, so that they're calming you down here. So they want to calm you down and say, we will be doing all of that, right? We will be, not only that these things need to be addressed, but we will do that, and we'll show you a framework for addressing all of that. So you feel a bit settled, right? Okay, they do that. They will do that. That's really good. And then in the resolution, they'll tell you why. They continuously tell you, they hold on to the same thread, and now they tell you the qualities of the framework. So on the one hand, they're actually calming you down again, because they're saying, you've heard those terms before. This is what's at the core of our framework, right? So you better pay attention. So they're calming you down a little. They're saying to you, well, we're not inventing anything extraordinarily new. We're just explicating it maybe better. And all of this is in reference to terms. Some of them, like these, you've heard before, so they're calming you down. These ones are new terms, individual and individual not so much, but personalized. It's something new, right? So they start trying to intrigue you a little bit. Adaptive, they're trying to intrigue you some more, saying you better read us because we're at the cutting edge, right? If you don't know those terms. And the moral is, well, we're basing all of this on the principle of challenging learners' operational histories. And if you don't know the term, what are they saying? Well, read this paper. If you want to be on the cutting edge, you do the reading. And the moral of the whole thing is operational histories matter. Now, that's a well-designed abstract. This is the first time I read this abstract. I've never read it before. I've had this paper for a while, but I have never read this. But you can see how you can actually create an abstract of your paper. And now when you write the paper, all you have to do is to develop a section on this problem, on this issue. Then you develop a section on this issue. Then you develop section on this issue. Then you develop section on this issue. Then you develop section on this issue. And then you write so this is your discussion. This is your conclusion. Isn't it beautiful? Just beautiful. So you can see that writing an academic paper is not difficult. Developing an abstract is extremely important, and a lot of people actually require from you to develop an abstract first. Because then once you have an abstract and you know the function of it, and the function here is to describe the phenomenon, and in what way do you want to describe? You want to connect the readers with you. Yeah, this is the problem. And you want to connect smart readers with you, which means the ones who know about ASEAN policies, right? And they know what the ASEAN policies are saying, and they also know why educational reforms in every Southeast Asian country that I know of are stressing English, for example, or also learning of other languages, right? So they connect to less informed and also to public, or to the professionals who are extremely well informed because they have read the reforms and they have read the policies of ASEAN, of the ASEAN and so on. So they actually show sophistication here. So when they describe the phenomenon, they don't say, oh yeah, recently English is really important. You don't reach out to any professionals or public here because it's too simplistic. You have to say it's in the policies of the ASEAN community. It's in the policies of countries in education. It is already happening in our schools, right? So you have to describe that. So then you describe the problem. Oh yeah, but that brings problems, right? And everybody is aware of it, and that's why education needs to address it and the research needs to address it. And these are the sort of issues here, the sort of voices that in which this problem is captured, right? So these three different aspects. So we've spoken about all of that and all of that. So yeah, simple, lovely, and I've divided this in colors because now you can write a section if you write the paper, now on the basis of this you write your introduction, and you can write an introduction on the basis of what you have in your setting focus, right? Then you can do problem state, then you can do literature review, and you do it. So introduction and problem statement, right? Or maybe literature review. Literature review is better. Literature review, which will, I might just find the color. We do like this, introduction and problem statement, right? Statement. So you have here the setting focus and disturbance. Then if you have the set and problem statement, setting focus and disturbance, literature review, literature review would be discussion on these voices. Then study design, this is what we will do. Then you study design, you identify the concepts that you will work with and that come out from your literature review. Then is the analysis, which is what they did, which is they suggested the framework, right? So they do the analysis. Then you do discussion, which is the red thing, and then you do the conclusion, which is the resolution. So you can see, once you have the abstract well designed, all of this, the writing of an academic paper becomes way simpler, right? That's why learning to write an abstract well and analyzing other people's abstracts is such a good exercise. So thank you very much.